To set the context, I would like to invite Drishti Vishwanathan, Project Associate, Food, Land and Water, WR India. Over to you, Drishti.
Thank you, Neha. Over the course of these 2 days, we have discussed food loss and waste in the context of climate change, supply chain efficiency, and waste management. However, it also has important implications for nutrition security. I'll be providing a brief context for this. Apologies, we're just setting it up. Thanks. So when food is lost or wasted, we're not simply losing food by weight, we're also losing valuable nutrients, including vitamins, minerals, proteins, and other micronutrients that are essential for human health. Thank you. Yes. So when we look at nutrition indicators in the case of India, we see that despite significant progress over the years, undernutrition and anemia continue to remain major public health challenges. Almost 30% of children under 5 years are stunted or overweight, and 2/3 of children under 5 continue to suffer from anemia. At the same time, evidence from the ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition, NIN, shows that the consumption of micronutrient-rich foods, including whole grains, pulses, nuts, fruits, vegetables, and green leafy vegetables, remains well below recommended levels for a large proportion of the population. When we look at ICMR NIN's My Plate for the Day, which provides a simple guidance to achieve a balanced diet, sourcing energy from different food groups. This has at least 8 different food groups with fruits, vegetables, green leafy vegetables, roots and tubers, comprising nearly half of the plate. So we see that essentially these are the very foods that are highly susceptible to food loss and waste given their perishability. So not only is this a challenge, but this presents an important opportunity for us. Many of these preventing the loss and waste of nutrient-rich foods helps retain essential vitamins and minerals in the food system, improving access to healthy diets, particularly for vulnerable populations. Reducing losses of cereals, vegetables, fruits, and dairy helps retain iron, vitamin C and K, and calcium within the food system. So using estimates from UNEP 2024, which tells us that around 55 kg of food is lost at a household level per capita per year, and nutritional values reported by ICMR NIN, authored by Dr. Hemlata, who's also joining us in the panel, we have essentially calculated that 55 kg of food waste equals roughly 63 days of an average urban adult diet. This translates to nutritional loss per capita per year of 3.5 kg protein, 3.3 kg fat, 18.2 kg carbohydrates, and 123,000 kilocalories. So essentially, when we look at maximizing the nutritional benefits of food loss and waste, we need to design interventions that are nutrition sensitive. So there are several methods through which we can, suggested methods through which we can achieve this. For instance, at the production and harvest stage, we can look at reducing losses of nutrient-dense commodities such as fruits, vegetables, dairy products. At the level of aggregation, distribution, retail, we can look at recovery of safe surplus food and redistribution, and more nutrition-conscious cosmetic standards, which to reduce the rejection of edible produce based solely on appearance. Within processing and manufacturing, nutrition-sensitive processing methods, reformulation, fortification can help preserve nutritional value while minimizing losses. And at the consumer and food service level, actions such as portion planning, food preservation, and better utilization of leftovers can help prevent avoidable waste. So essentially, across the value chain, what is also specifically needed is an awareness and behavior change, which is critical. At WRI, what we've been doing is that we've been broadening the conversation in food loss and waste to also apply a nutritional lens. So if we look at in the Indian context, there's a dearth of research on nutritional loss, and we are also essentially looking at the measuring and quantifying the nutritional loss across our food loss and waste studies, be it at a city level, food composition studies, or at the crop-specific level. We're also exploring how existing interventions such as food recovery and redistribution can generate measurable nutritional benefits alongside environmental and economic outcomes. And ultimately, the objective is essentially to generate evidence that can support nutrition-sensitive decision-making, which can be used by a variety of stakeholders, be it city governments, agribusinesses, development organizations, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Drishti, for setting the stage and grounding us in the key issues. We now move to the panel discussion, where we will deep dive into these themes with our distinguished speakers. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Ms. Monica Rena, International Development Strategist. Monica has over 25 years of experience across food system, nutrition livelihoods, women economic empowerment, and stakeholder engagement across South Asia, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Now I will invite our esteemed panelist, Dr. R. Hemlata. She is joining us online. She is a former director of ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition, and currently serves as Head of Medical and Health Research at Yashodha Hospital. Our next panelist is Dr. Sudhakar Pandey. Dr. Sudhakar Pandey is the Assistant Director Journal, Horticulture Science at the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. His work contributes to improving productivity, resilience, and quality in horticulture systems. Moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Vartika Singh. Vartika is an Associate Research Fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute. Dr. Vartika works on sustainable food systems, agriculture policy, and climate action with focus on South Asia. Moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Bhuvneshwari Balasubramanian is an India Country Director for Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. She has extensive experience working with government on scaling initiatives such as Poshan Abhiyan and is deeply committed to improving nutrition outcomes for vulnerable populations. Moving on to our last panelist, Dr. Bhavna Sharma. She is the Head of Nutrition and Innovation Sensory Insights at Nestle R&D. Dr. Sharma brings expertise in nutrition science, product innovation, and consumer insights, working at the intersection of industry innovation and public health nutrition. Over to you, Monica, for leading.
Thanks. First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm so glad we had this kind of a warm-up with our innovators, so hopefully everybody is shaken off their post-meal, kind of lethargy. And thank you all, everyone, for being here, and thank you to WRI for putting us such a wonderful Reset 2026 together and getting us all here. And thank you to all the eminent panelists. I hope our other panelists will join or whatever it is. I think we have Dr. Hemlata virtually as well. That's what I was told. So without further ado, and quickly a full disclosure, I'm not a nutrition expert by any stretch of imagination, except of course I try to eat nutritious food. And but of course I do work in FLW and related things. So the good part will be that there will be minimum intervention from my side, because I dare not foray too much into nutrition, and because of that you will get maximum to hear from our speakers and especially benefit from their experience and expertise. Yesterday, I think in the morning session, one of the data which really stayed with me, and obviously, because it was nutrition related, that almost every fourth calorie in the world, they gave a percentage of 24%, WRI study, every fourth calorie in the world, almost you could say, is wasted, actually. That's a kind of, from food loss and waste, that's the kind of nutritional challenge we have. And just now when we saw that 63 days of adult food is also wasted, so, the task is laid out in front of us. So I'll turn to Dr. Hemlata to begin with. Do we have her online?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay.
Online.
Okay, but we just can't see you. Okay, no problem. So, hello Dr. Hemlata, thank you for being here, and good to meet you virtually. Given your amazing work in this area, I guess the first question we have for you is, often this food loss and waste is discussed through the lens of economic, agriculture and climate efficiency, but less through nutrition. So where do you see the opportunity for embedding FLW reduction as a priority within India's nutrition agenda, especially for improving access to nutrient and diverse foods for the people? And we saw all those statistics for children, etc. So over to you, Dr. Hemlata. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for not participating physically. So the greatest opportunity, India has quite a lot of programs with respect to food loss and food waste as well. And if you ask me where the greatest opportunity lies, definitely it is when we see two problems, where large quantities of nutrient-rich foods are being lost while nearby population continue to have poor dietary diversity and micronutrient deficiencies. So on one side, in the same area we see nutrient-rich foods lost, and then the same population micronutrient deficiencies continue to exist. But then if you ask me, do we have data on this? We do not know, because we always estimate food loss in terms of quantities and in terms of economic loss. But we do not have estimations around how much nutrition we lose. Although talks are there in this area, there are many discussions there, but when it comes to the fact, there is no data, or we have no information of how much nutrition is being lost, or how much nutrition is being wasted also, we do not have data. So here, if you give me a little more time, I can tell you, I think we should have a portion rescue grid, a digital app set up around, we have many programs, I agree. There is Operation Green also, several programs are there. But this will be a digital app around Monday, which will automatically identify nutrient-rich foods at risk of loss, and which are due to price crash or cosmetic rejection, market glut. It will predict that produce will remain unsold for 24 or nearly 48 hours, and then an alert will come. Based on this alert, the food will be diverted to markets where it is needed, or it will be sent for early processing or minimal processing, or it can even be diverted to Anganwadi centers where the communities or municipalities can procure them. Another thing I can think of is create a district level district level waste plus nourish more. Here we should include the households, restaurants, hotels, household complexes, on a voluntary basis. It should be a national program, but then it should have so much awareness that restaurants and hotels will voluntarily join to reduce food waste. So this reduced food waste will be converted into value, and a portion of that, a predefined portion of that, will be diverted to procure nutrition-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, eggs, pulses, and other nutrient-rich foods, and this will be called nutrition credits, portion nutrition credits, and this will be given to Anganwadi centers. I don't see any other opportunity where you can see how loss and waste can be converted to nutrition credits and how that can benefit Anganwadi centers. So these are two opportunities I see where vegetable loss and pulses loss egg and fish loss also, because these are the most vulnerable products produced. This can be converted into useful commodities in Anganwadi centers, or the loss that happens in hotels and restaurants can be converted into cash and nutrition credits, and that cash can be a proportion, just a percent of that will be converted to procuring nutrition-rich foods to Anganwadi centers. While this can maintain dignity as well as safety for children who receive these foods. So thank you so much. And third thing, I'm sorry, I'm taking just one more minute. Third thing, see, food loss is not just in terms of visible food loss. There is also invisible nutrition loss in terms of like how much food reaches the food industry, how much is being lost while processing, and what comes out, what is lost during processing is also, we do not have data. If only we have, we can try to retain, develop processes where more nutrition can be retained, or whatever is lost also try to recover them, and whether we can reintroduce that into food chain is what we have to study. That is the third point, where industry also, processing in food industry also contributes to loss of nutrition loss, that not even food loss, nutrition loss. Thank you.
Very fascinating, Dr. Hemlatha, and the passion for nutrition comes out in the way you talk. And nutrition credits, that's again a very interesting concept. And so thank you very much, and we'll be back to you for a second round. I've just been informed by the organizers that Dr. Bhavna can't make it because of some last minute exigency. So maybe if the organizers can, the questions have gone to her, maybe she has some responses, you'll probably see it in the report. So moving on, to Dr. Sudhakar Pandey. Nutrition doesn't begin on the plate as we know, but it begins much earlier in the food system because of, from where it comes. So moving upstream, I'd like to understand from Dr. Pandey, where along India's horticulture value chains are we losing the most nutritional value, not just the volumes, and which interventions could have the biggest impact on improving the availability and affordability of diverse nutritious foods that could be linked to India's nutritional security goals. Basically, this building on what Dr. Hemlatha just said, and more upstream.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. So, we are talking about how we are losing the nutrition. But first we have to produce the crops, we have to produce the horticultural crops, then we have to talk about our losses of nutrition, and what we can say that post-harvest losses. So nutrition value in value chain, after production it is starting generally value chain after post-harvest. So we are generally talking the wastage and post-harvest losses generally. When we are talking about the nutritional loss, we don't have any data particularly, because always we are measuring in volume as well as we are measuring sometimes in the economic loss, in the sense of rupees and in sense of values, dollar and other things. In horticulture, as you know that now in our country we are food sufficient. Each and every person can take the foods. Our plate is totally full of foods, but we are lacking about the nutritional aspects in that particular plates. We have seen in our first presentations that we have to eat near about 500 grams fruits and vegetables. That include tuber crops like leafy vegetables, legumes, everything is there. So in horticulture, if you see in our country, we have near about, if you see the world population, we have 17% of world population with us. But how much area we have for cultivated area? Only 2.3% cultivated area in our country we have. Because I am agriculturist, so little bit, because you all, I think, don't have background on that. And only 4% water we have with us. Besides that, we are producing sufficient foods, sufficient fiber, sufficient, we can say the nutrition also. And sufficient, we can say that nutrition also we are producing, but we are losing a lot in that. In horticulture crop itself, we are producing near about 210 crops. We are doing intensive research on that aspects, which includes vegetable, fruits, spices, medicinal plant, flowers, mushroom and honey also. That is coming in the horticulture. Horticulture, now we are producing more than the cereals and food crops. Now we have surpassed the cereal crops also. So horticulture produce is very high. Presently, in third estimate, we have near about 370 million tons. Out of that, 32% is vegetables, horticulture fruits crop, and 58% is vegetables, and only 10% by the other what we have other like spices, mushrooms, honey, everything. And now we are in many crops we are number one in the world, like banana, papaya, pomegranate, mango, okra, and we are second largest in many other crops like potato, onion. We are calling top crops. If you see, top is tomato, potato, and onion. If crisis is coming, always you see in the onion, potato, and tomato, these are consuming near about 60% our plates, 70% our plates are generally by these three crops. If you see, if we are talking about the vegetables, and we are also contributing 13% of total production of the world, particularly in horticulture crops. But if we see the consumption pattern last 4 decades, so cereal consumption is now declined. By data, if you see, near about it was earlier 30 kg per month per person, cereal consumption. But now it is declined, it is now 9 kg per person per month. Means that now due to awareness of the health, due to awareness of the nutrition, and we have now better purchase power. So therefore, I think our, but horticulture consumption, you say consumption point of view, it was earlier 4 kg per capita per person, now it is 9 kg per capita per person. So lot of awareness is coming for that particular aspects, and there is data. We have in our country 15 agroclimatic zone, and we have studied in near about 292 districts. And if you see, we are losing near about 7.36 million tons of fruits, 11.97 million tons of vegetables. If we contribute in economics, that is near about 73,000 crores across in horticulture, commodity itself. That produce, we cannot convert in the nutrition because we don't have this type of data. I think we are thankful WRI, they are choosing this type of topics. I think, I have seen a lot of new entrepreneurs, they have presented before these sessions. So it was very, very enthusiastic for me that we can discuss, we can exchange your all these ideas, and we can in ICR, we can implement all these things. So most of the, when just after harvesting from the plants, so after that nutrition loss is being started, we generally have the poor post-harvest handling, no right time harvesting. Suppose we are harvesting before maturity of the crops, we are generally calling it maturity indices. So these are the factors which is really these losing the nutrition, mechanical damage, grading, lot of grading. Even in crop tomato, when we are harvesting, there are 3-4 type of gradings are there. So first grading is going to somewhere, second grading is going to somewhere. So there are lot of losses are there in grading itself, lack of pre-cooling. There is a field heats it there. So when we are harvesting any produce, temperature is high, immediately like vitamin C, riboflavins, B12, B2, they are losing in the field itself. And we have the broken cold chains from our farm gates to the markets. We don't have any refrigerator like that. So these are the factors which are causing the loss, particularly for our these nutrition and transportation and storage itself. We have these WRI, they have studied very well in case of onion, and 30% storage losses we have onion itself. When we are storing, there is no these like in onion, other crops also when we are storing in the these 4-degree temperature, even 10-degree temperature, there are a lot of nutrition losses there. And vitamin C depletion, if you see, vitamin particularly in that aspects also, lot of particularly vitamin C, vitamin A. These are the heat sensitive vitamins when we are exporting. For examples, one examples I can give, most of these our carrots, they are going Coimbatore from Bulandshahr, they are going to Amritsar in the truck itself. You can imagine that how much nutrient we can lose, particularly vitamin D and beta carotene from that. So these are the, I think these type of facilities we have to intervene, like cold chain development, and then how we can zero energy cool chamber at farm gate, how we can start, and how we can make the clusters, so aggregation facility we can have and cluster basis, and how we can link the FPOs, particularly in that cluster. I think in that way we can save the nutrient loss. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. And that's also a powerful reminder that protecting harvest is not just about protecting the tons of produce, but it's also about protecting nutrients. And also glad to know that now the consumption of fruits and vegetables has gone up. So that now brings us to Dr. Vartika Singh. Your research that, which is actually, in one word it says that one size doesn't fit all. That regionally grounded dietary guidance can produce stronger outcomes for selected economic and environmental indicators in India. Based on this research, how should food loss and waste strategies differ across India's regions instead of relying on one national approach or a global template? Yes, Dr. Vartika. And actually all of you have about 4 minutes in this first round to speak. I forgot to mention it earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you everybody for this wonderful initiative to discuss realities of food loss and waste. And I will begin with the figure that was presented, which is this plate of India's recommended nutrition guidelines. I myself have studied that plate, but there is rarely a day when my own plate looks like it. And my work has been at the intersection of human health and environmental health, which is where I have analyzed these dietary recommendations of NIN. And as Dr. Hemlata also mentioned, these guidelines have been prepared to keep human health in mind, providing the most nutritious foods that one should be consuming. And in my literature review, I tried to look at what are the globally approved recommended indicators, how should we consume foods for our own nutritional security, and Eat Lancet recommended guidelines, for those of you who may have heard, also was at the intersection. So in my research, I tried and compared that and was able to demonstrate that the more we go further below, the more regionalization we are able to do, not just in the foods we produce, but also in the foods that we consume. We are able to demonstrate increased environmental benefits and outcomes. We talked about emissions, we talked about land use change, water use, and historically the kind of foods that we have been producing and consuming. And we talked about 2 generations ago where food loss and waste was minimal. We see that if we went back to those processes, we would be able to reduce food loss and waste to some extent. And in my experience so far, what I think is that even at the scale of India, we are setting ourselves to failure when we try and solve this problem all at once. We need to go further, downscaling, look into the various regions. So for example, in the Northwest, which are water surplus, cereal producing states and regions, that is where we need to perhaps look at reduction of food loss of rice. Rice emits more than 75% of emissions from food loss, for that matter. And as Dr. Pandey has also suggested, we are reducing the intake of rice. We're not necessarily increasing the intake of, at least in the latest rounds of NFHS data that we have seen, we are increasing the intake of processed food. So we are replacing cereals with high fatty, salt, sugary foods. So those are the regions in which we need to kind of focus. Similarly, if we were to look at the dryland areas where we look at pulses, millets, those are the foods that need to be targeted, especially in those regions, by investing in food processing setups, by investing in cold storage to ensure that farmers get the right prices for their produce, but are also able to consume the foods that do not travel a lot within the country, even because we've heard from both the previous speakers, we do not have data on these emissions that are generated from food transport as well. So, the more closer we get to what is produced being consumed in the region, the better off we shall be. And we are working towards that. I can talk about maybe in the next question. Time's up.
Thank you, Dr. Vartika, and maybe all of you can even get 1 minute or so more, or 2 minutes, because we don't have one panelist. But just to complete this round, but what really came out, I think one is, of course, everybody's talking about the lack of data, related to nutrition. And the other thing is that, India's diversity, because of the kind of diversity India has, it requires equally diverse solutions. And that naturally brings us to my favorite topic of markets. So, which brings value for both consumers and farmers at scale. So, moving on to Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, GAIN has long championed market-based approaches to improve the availability, accessibility and affordability of nutritious foods. How can market-based solutions also reduce FLW, food loss and waste, while creating value for farmers, agribusinesses and consumers?
Thank you, Monica. Pleasure being here, and thank you for asking that question. When we look at the larger concept of food loss and waste from within the food system lens, there are certain insights that come out quite strongly. For instance, Are we growing the right kind of food? And are we growing sufficient amounts of it? Is it traveling from farm gate to markets in the way that it ensures that there is as much as possible reduced food and nutrition loss? And is it available at prices and access points where people of different economic and social backgrounds are able to consume it equitably? And there are several challenges across all of this. Like Sir mentioned, horticulture crop, India as a nation and across many of the states, India has surpassed horticulture production compared to cereal production. But there are certain aspects that still affect how much price or how much income a farmer can generate from horticulture crops. One bumper harvest and then suddenly the farmer is scrambling to sell his produce to such an extent that there is distress sale of tomatoes that we see pretty much every year. Now, some of the biggest challenges, systemically the challenge that we see is there are certain departments that are in charge for food production where the responsibility stops at farm gate. There are certain departments like your APMC or a mandi where the responsibility starts at the markets. What happens to the crops or the produce from farm gate to market is the biggest challenge. And there comes the maximum potential of the private sector to really support. Now, when we talk about private sector, we are not just thinking about the big buyers. You've got your ITCs and your Nestle's and others who are buying in bulk from producers, but we need to do so much more to ensure that the value chain becomes stronger for the farmer to earn the worth of the produce and is not pushed to sell beyond the cost of production. Because by the end of the day, this is also a business, and we have 80% of our farmers are smallholder farmers, vulnerable farmers. And we also have to look at our farmers as, by the end of the day, consumers of the very food that they produce. So this, and we've been talking about missing middle a lot, even in the previous meeting we were talking about it, but this is the middle that is missing, right? Farm gate to market. And like what Sir was mentioning, the whole idea of aggregation, processing, cold chain solution, technological innovations that help people link between farm gate to markets. Now, these are all areas where your market, your private sector can really enable, efficiency and bring about profitability in the sector. The very fact that you have many young people setting up agro-based innovations right now, which are being incentivized through several international to Indian accelerator funding, to government's infrastructure, investment infrastructure. So there is a lot of impetus that is being given to develop value chain, but that connecting is going to be the game changer, and your innovations and technology, traceability solutions, these are all going to minimize the time it takes, because several of your nutritious foods are the highly perishable ones, being your milk, meat, or fruits and vegetables, and time is of the essence, quality is of the essence to ensure reduction of nutrition is minimized, and that's where your innovations are going to be crucial.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, and absolutely what you talked about, the technology and the modeling which can, so we'll get into that in some time. So now we come to the round two of where we go a bit deeper, and we again come back to Dr. Hemlata, who is, like you all know, has joined us online. So Dr. Hemlata, through these two studies, through what India eats and the diet and biomarker study, you have strengthened the evidence based on dietary patterns and nutrition gaps in India. So I know we were talking as already there's not much data, but what additional data, metrics or research would most help quantify the nutrition implications of food loss and waste? So what are these indicators of the data and metrics? And these could obviously better inform policy decisions. So over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, when coming to this, what India eats, in that study we have found that mostly Indians rely on cereal-based diet. So nutrition is lost there also. I mean, we don't have, not even the economically deprived people, but also across rich and the poor, generally we have this habit of consuming lots of cereals. So there as well we find nutrition intake is poor. Coming to this diet and biomarker study, which is now called Spandan, which is a very large study. In the world, you can say that is the first of its kind, which is collecting data directly from house to house on nutrition intake and food intake. So we are going to get a lot of information and data on what nutrients are going in across age groups, across city, urban areas and villages, and also what food is going in. Not only what food is going into, but also what nutrients are going into people. This data is going to be very, very useful for several policy decisions. The survey has been completed and very soon the data is going to be compiled and released. Maybe this year end or early next year it is going to be released. These are very two important ones, but I also want to interrupt here and say that I'm happy to note that excuse me for this. Yeah, I'll come to that point later. Yeah. As far as data is concerned, we have on one side food intake data, nutrient intake data on a larger scale, which the data is going to come very soon. We also have how much is being produced in India, and the ICAR doctor was saying we are first in several nutrients, but when it comes to per capita, I am sure we are not to that extent. Coming to the level of data that we require, what I feel is at district level, we require a nutrition loss map showing where nutrient-rich foods, vegetables and fruits, pulses and eggs, dairy and fish, which are all vulnerable products, where do we use them? How much iron, protein, vitamin E, vitamins, minerals are being lost along with the food that is being lost? And what is the level of dietary diversity in the same area? I mean, we have to connect the loss that is occurring in a particular place or district and the nutrition gap that is existing among the population. Across the food chain, where do we use them? And what is the dietary deficiency that is existing in the same population? When we have this kind of data, definitely it is going to help the policymakers to connect these two issues. The second one is measure the nutrient leakage. What nutrients enter the processing system? I mean, we have absolutely no idea. For example, I can say there are small reports showing fiber is near 100% lost when food goes into processing. And fiber is one of the most important macronutrient. Although it does not contribute so much to energy, it contributes a lot to your gut health, microbiome, and your cognition, whatnot, metabolic health, everything. But fiber is being lost when food is processed. Along with fiber, lots of minerals and vitamins and bioactive compounds are also lost. So we need to have data when food goes into what are the nutrients that are there, how much is lost after processing. Is it possible to retain some of them by reducing the processing level? I mean, instead of aggressive processing, maybe we can minimize. Or even if there is necessary loss along with the nutrient loss, along with fractions, can we recover them safely and can we reintroduce them into the food chain? This data is very, very important. Once this data is available, probably again it will stimulate the policymakers to come up with some strategy to retain them and reintroduce them into food chain. The third I would like to tell is nutrition flow accounting system. If at all, I mean, we have on one side nutrition produced, I mean food produced, convert that into nutrition also. How much we are losing in terms of nutrition, how much is how much is being recovered, and what is the nutrition gap that we are addressing if at all we implement some of these features, and what impact we are getting on nutrition. So I feel, I mean, these data are very important. Yes, NIM is contributing a lot to some of this data availability, but then we need to connect these and come up with better data which help the policy makers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hemlata. Again, I mean, totally, especially nutritional loss map. Probably WRI this time unveiled a tool to calculate GHG emissions. Next time there'll be a tool to calculate the nutrition loss, like Dr. Hemlata is saying next reset. That'll be great if it happens in the next reset. Also things like, like I'm reminded of, when the doctor or the dietitian says, just eat the fruit, don't juice it. So that means the nutritional security or the nutritional loss is also at the food processing level, not just at the food loss and waste level. So that's another sort of layer we are getting into. So, I mean, we can just go on, and I hope there are some policymakers to whom all these things must have reached, will be reaching, and some of the solutions which Dr. Hemlata has provided in terms of frameworks and mapping. Moving on, we move to Dr. Vartika Singh, so basically when we're talking about technology modeling and turning this evidence into action, so at IFPRI you have initiatives like FABLE, right? Or actually that's a tool you were telling me, right? Food, agriculture, biodiversity,
Land use and energy.
And energy. So that's a tool which IFPRI has developed. If Dr. Bhartika can tell us about it in like less than a minute. But basically, these are for long-term food systems planning. So how can modeling and decision support tools help governments identify food loss and waste interventions that improve the affordability and availability of nutritious foods? So probably, again, building on what Dr. Hemlata pointed out, while balancing farmer livelihoods, trade and environmental sustainability. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you. I'll pick up from where Dr. Hemlata was also talking about, that we don't have these data at the disaggregated level that we need, but using what is available, what we have tried to do with colleagues from other international institutions at IIM Ahmedabad in India, IFPRI myself, we've tried to work on this tool, which is food, agriculture, biodiversity, land use, and energy. And then I know just in my previous sentence I said, don't try to do everything at once, but in this tool, this is what we're essentially trying to do, because we realize that food loss and waste and all factors associated with agri-food systems, they rarely look at one outcome. It's all interrelated. So we've been talking about cold chains. If I were to establish a cold chain in a particular district to look at the conservation or processing of, or like storing of a particular food product, it's going to perhaps get better prices to the farmers, it's going to get better product to the consumers, but it'll also have greater energy use. So it's not a one-time decision that one needs to make. Just as we're talking about AI data centers needing more water, all of these units also need more energy. So when we are looking at these tools, what we try to do is provide decision makers with some sort of planning mechanisms. It's not a full and final 100% accurate results, but what it does tell you is where are the trade-offs, and it will help decision makers look at what are the commodities that I should prioritize if I want to focus on greater consumption of nutrient-rich foods, which are the regions that I want to target, and also long-term projections, because there are global targets, and India also has set up a target of halving food waste, reducing by half by 2030. So in this tool, although it's developed at the national level, right now myself and some other PhD students from IIM Ahmedabad, we are trying to downscale it at the state level. We still don't have anything at the district level because there's too much data that needs to make a consistent tool. But at the state level, we have been able to aggregate quite a lot of the data. And I was looking at some of the results more recently, and my colleague, she's a PhD student at IIM Ahmedabad, trying to look at estimates from NAPCONs, from UNEP estimates. We just saw the emission tracker, so I'm going to go back and look at those data and compare as well. We tried to run some scenarios, 10% reduction, 30% reduction, 50% reduction, and we found that if by 2030 we were to reduce our food loss and waste by half, we would save about, we would be able to produce additional food for about 45 million people, and also reduce undernourished population by about 29%. This would also reduce CO2 emissions by 43% and would require 36% less cropland to grow. So basically, it's not just one indicator, it's all of these indicators that are linked with each other that we are able to influence. But this is also a very ambitious 50% reduction scenario. We've also looked at other scenarios where we say, okay, maybe we're not able to reach 50%, maybe we just reach 30%. But the emissions reductions, the reduced use of cropland, as well as the additional food that is saved to feed millions of other people is in itself incentive enough for policymakers to take action. And this is what we are trying to do, at least using this tool for now, and trying to aggregate as much data, further downscale it to, we have it at the state level, but interstate trade of crops, there is actually no data, or, like what is produced in Punjab gets transported to Odisha or to Uttar Pradesh or to Tamil Nadu for that matter. So trying to aggregate data on those levels as well, without which it will be very difficult to say what is the actual emissions reductions of reduced food loss and waste. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vartika Singh. That's amazing, and the kind of benefits you said if it happens. And I mean, certainly at these tools, I mean, the government, I hope they'll see the trade-offs. And like you said, already at the state government level, it has started. So we look forward to hearing more about this as you go along. And moving on to Dr. Sudhakar Pandey, ultimately the change which we want to see, it happens in the field when science meets the farmer. So as India looks to reduce food loss and waste, how can horticultural research and extension move beyond protecting volumes to also protecting nutritional quality, freshness and dietary diversity? And more importantly, in order for this, what partnerships or policy support would be needed to make this shift? So basically the partnerships and collaborations required for this.
Thank you, madam. Actually, now in at government level also, earlier our strategy was basically production oriented, but now the total strategy has been changed. Now it is a nutritional oriented technologies we are generally using. And for that, if you see in the last 2 years, we have developed not in cereal crops, in horticulture crop itself, lot of biofortified varieties. Now our total breeding concept has been changed. Now we are breeding for better nutrition, better shelf life. And in horticulture crops, if you see, now we have 18 biofortified varieties in our country. Biofortified varieties means generically we have biofortified that varieties, and they have what we have in normal conditions, particularly in any case. So that nutrition quality, particularly micronutrient, vitamins, that are higher, significantly higher as compared to normal what we are eating. So that is one aspect. And for that, how really that is contributing with the health. So very recently we have launched a program with the help of Ministry of Health and our Cabinet Minister and Honorable Cabinet Minister of Health Department, Ministry. They have launched a program that is called Sehat. Sehat, Science Excellence for the Health through the agricultural transformations. So there, for example, the biofortified varieties, suppose we are releasing, we are notifying by Government of India, how these varieties are contributing particularly in the health. So ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research and Indian Council of Agriculture Research, they are working close to close and they are generating a lot of data on that aspects. So that is one aspect generally we have changed in that aspects. And other aspects is we are working lot of unexploited crops are there, traditional crops are there, which is naturally rich in their nutritional quality. So we have the future crops program in our ministry, and now we have working on that. A lot of crops, more than 500 crops we have identified, not in horticulture, in other crops also. So that are being again popularized among the farmers, among the local villagers, so how they can use in their plates, particularly like makhana, water spinach, jamun, drumsticks, amla, whale, several crops are there which needs to popularization. And post-harvest innovation, we have seen that in the madam also that lot of nutritional loss are there. So we have to be used like edible coatings, even a lot of flowers are there which are edible. So now we are working on the lot of flowers which are very much edible, and they are very much bioactive compounds are very high in that particular flowers crops. So that also we have added in our baskets. And there are several initiatives I think government can take because productions are there. Their availability to the poor persons, that is also very important. So whether like carbon credit, we are always talking. National Nutri Credit System, whether we can implement, that may be also one of the aspects that can be. And direct subsidy, biofortified varieties, farmers will not grow because nobody will know that this is biofortified varieties and their rates should be high. then they will purchase. So there may be a mechanism to subsidize this type of varieties and crops. If farmers are going, they can get the better price, like we are having the organic foods and others. So that may be also. And whether in the slum areas, whether we can promote the vouchers for fruits and vegetables. That voucher they can only credit when they can buy the fruits and vegetables. So that way also in the slum areas, we can increase the consumptions, particularly in these nutrition vegetables. And urban and peri-urbans, lot of these schemes are there. Now we have vertical gardens schemes are there, hydroponics, even whole buildings we can convert in the hydroponics, we can convert in the vertical farmings, particularly slum areas. Whether nutri gardens we can promote in the schools, in other communities, slum communities. And in extension systems, if you see in our particular ICR, we have near about 731 Krishi Vigyan Kendra, and we are working at ground level, and we are percolating what technology we have. One-to-one at village level, we are interacting with the state governments, district levels. So on that basis, we are trying to percolate our all type of new varieties, new production technologies and schemes, particularly like Pradhan Mantri Poshans Yojana, natural farming, organic farming, cultivation. So like that, we are doing a lot of things, particularly how we can make our country nutrition secure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. That was again, I mean, all these schemes you talked about, Sehat, Poshan, we keep hearing about it, and really for both the farmer side and the consumer side, these kind of things, we look forward to sort of this going ahead and knowing more about it. I guess at this round, the final question, so definitely not the least, to Dr. Bhuvaneshwari. So after hearing what all is possible, then the question comes, how do we finance all this? So many food loss and waste solutions require investment in aggregation, cold chains, processing, data systems and capacity building, all that we've been talking about. Which financing models, market mechanisms or partnerships again, do you believe can move nutrition sensitive food loss and waste reduction from successful pilots to scale? So that's the other thing about the pilots, or rather the scale.
So a couple of ways I would look at it. One, who are the stakeholders? And two, what could be the potential financing mechanisms? Now, in terms of stakeholders, of course, you want to reduce waste by A, making it reach markets faster, B, creating value-added products out of it. Now, we know from the consumption and expenditure survey that packaged foods and beverages sale of it is increasing since the last decade. Convenience is key. So one of the things that probably the focus needs to be is how do you ensure that the value-added products that are developed are nutrition sensitive? There has to be a nutrition lens. And I feel institutions under the larger banner of MOFPI, like your National Institute of Food Technology or your CFTRI, they're already playing a critical role in supporting businesses in developing value-added products. We need to have a nutrition lens to it. Now, a quick pointer on who could finance this, right? There are several financial mechanisms that are interested in financing agri-food systems because there is a lot of opportunity for not just domestic business engagement, but also international trade engagements. A lot of bilateral engagements are also around food and agriculture. So there is from your typical accelerator fundings by, let's say, a Godrej to international accelerator fundings. At GAIN, we run something called as the Nutritious Foods Financing Facility that looks at funding impact link funds to businesses that promote nutritious food. So there are several such impact link funding mechanisms that are available. Development financial institutions like your IFADs and your Asia Development Banks and your World Bank are also putting in investments around this. Now, a quick example, probably Kishan would also talk about it in the next session from ADB, but our work with ADB, given that they have now given a commitment of about 40 billion in transforming food systems by 2030, one of the key things that they're looking at is how do you bring in nutrition lens? A very tangible example of this is their work in Maharashtra called Magnet, which looks at reducing food loss in horticulture crops. We are coming in to support them to say, how do you bring the nutrition lens into it? Now, their investment to the government of Maharashtra is also then saying, let's look at making infrastructure capacity building to look at promoting nutrition in the value-added products, promoting nutrition-linked production or crop choices, ensuring crop-specific cold chain solutions that are, some of them require certain degree of cold chain, some of them ambient temperatures. So can we look at identifying what's the nutrient loss of these crops and accordingly provide, cold chain solutions. There are also, India that way has fantastic cooperative financing ecosystems, other domestic ecosystems like your NABARD, your SIDBI. Now these are also providing infrastructure setup support for FPOs, for other private sector partners. Of course, the key is how do you ensure that the solutions do not just stay at pilot, but they go to scale. And I think we are at a ripe stage of seeing so many innovations that are mushrooming. We're also with our partners running an innovation challenge in Karnataka on how to reduce food loss in horticulture crops. While you identify innovations, there is then opportunities to partner with your larger, government is the ideal partner to look at talking about scale, right? But also certain development financial institutions that also continue to support in scaling up solutions. So several pathways for funding. But the critical aspect is how do you tap into the right institutions within government, within the development ecosystem to provide that nutrition lens, the technical support, and to help in scaling up.
Just a quick follow-up question to that is you mentioned several of the financing models and maybe some sort of blended also. So, but what about the private equity and investors in this space? Especially because, why I'm reminded, because we have this innovation sprint there and we have some terrific innovations, almost all of them, carefully curated. So again, those are something which need to scale, which need to know where the market is, or the people need to know such kind of innovation is there. The farmer needs to know and whoever else in the supply chain. So is there any light you can share?
No, absolutely. Private equity or private philanthropy or private funding for businesses around food is a very flourishing ecosystem that's growing because it's a win-win for all parties. Now, from a vulnerability lens, I think the most important thing that we need to look at is how does this positively impact the bottom line, which is your smallholder farmers. But at this point in time, there is significant, and again, this middle that is nobody's child in a lot of ways, market has that potential to address, and for private sector to fund this, it's a win-win for all. And by the end of the day, market mechanisms can help ecosystems survive, provided the right kind of regulations are also in place to protect the most vulnerable, which is our farmers. So I would also mention that, similar to how there's a lot of security measures around staple foods, staple crops, we need to also look at how do you promote further nutrient-rich crops? What kind of, resilience mechanisms can be provided, insurance, buyback, and several other opportunities can be provided for farmers to venture into the more climate vulnerable crops, the more traditional crops as well. But private equity is a interesting growing space.
Thank you for that. So I think, it's been really invigorating 2 rounds. And then the last lightning round, as we call it. So the same question to all of you, and you can answer, and maybe we'll start with Dr. Hemlata. But the question is, if there is one action India must prioritize over the next 5 years to reduce food loss and waste while achieving the latest nutrition gains of the country, what would it be? And you have about a minute, or if you can do it in a little less than a minute.
Just in 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. Measure where nutrition is being lost. Match it with where nutrition is lacking and act first where the two overlap. Okay, people lack in their diet in the same area and connect them. So this will allow India to prioritize action where high loss of nutrient-rich foods coincide with poor dietary diversity. And as Dr. Pandey rightly pointed out, there is immense potential if we investigate the flowers that we produce. Lots of them have a lot of bioactive compounds and nutrients which are unexplored and are not exploited at all. This is another area which we can try. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And would you like to speak first, Dr. Vartika? We'll start from there.
Sure, thank you. In 1 minute. So I'm from International Food Policy Research Institute, so I'll talk about policy. And we also run one of the largest, globally biggest biofortification programs called Harvest Plus. And the goal is to ensure nutrition reaches to all those. So even if you're consuming rice, it is basically vitamin A laden rice. And that's the goal, and the plan is to kind of, expand it to regions with the premise that we want people to keep consuming what they have been consuming, locally grown foods, but also nutritionally rich now. And the other thing that I would say is, when I talk about policy, it is the regulatory environment, and we've seen that consumption of processed foods has increased, and it's not going to go anywhere. Even though there may be some urban population who are looking at healthy eating patterns, it is in the same urban areas that a labor's child is eating a 5 rupee kurkure packet. So how do we make sure that processed foods are also nutritionally rich? By looking at processing industry, by looking at the various alternatives that have been discussed here in the last 2 days, to ensure that everybody, be it who is able to afford or not, is able to access basic nutrition in the best way possible. I would stop there.
Thank you, Vartika. Dr. Pandey, what would your one action be?
Yeah, it is very difficult in agriculture in one extent to complete all things, particularly food loss. But if we can protect our food loss, particularly first mile. First mile means just after harvesting. What Madam suggested that when we are going for market, infrastructure we are lacking in infrastructure. Particularly for farmers' point of view, we don't have pre-cool systems there in the farm gate. So therefore, now we are working on the clusters. Lot of cluster development, particularly in case of high-value crops. So 30 clusters. Cluster means in one area we can grow many crops, one crops, and when balloon are there, buyers are there. And in that way, now we are working near about 200 more clusters in different areas of the country. And I hope when cluster development will be there, certainly infrastructures can be created for that particular crops, because there will be one type of crops, so one type of clusters are there, so one type of infrastructure is also required. So on that aspects, cold storage, whatever is required for that crops, that can be done. So I think in the future, we have to be a nutritional ready district, what Madam has suggested in their first talk. So nutritional ready districts, we can do that. And second one is awareness. When we can talk like nutritional as a medicine, nobody will talk that our nutrition is a medicine. So on that aspects also we have to make the people. So at least they can itself preserve, and they can realize that we should not lose the foods, particularly when it is in the plate. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I thanks to the WRI for giving me this opportunity to come here. Thank you one and all.
So in this lightning round, we had Dr. Hemlata talk about a national nutrition loss account, looking at other dietary diversity like flowers. We had the policy Harvest Plus, which Vartika, Dr. Pandey talked about, this first protecting the first mile, and also nutrition as medicine, the awareness part. So now, Bhuvaneshwari, coming to you, what is that one action you'd like to propose?
I would propose two. Just taking the liberty. One would be, of course, financing for nutrition sensitive post-harvest solutions. when we look at what post-harvest solutions, again, it again depends on value chains that you're selecting. Where is the maximum loss that happens? How do you plug that? So when I want to cheekily put it as a larger umbrella of financing for nutrition-sensitive solution, which then includes identifying evidence-based actions on what kind of infrastructure is needed, what capacity building is needed, and what kind of value-added products that need to reach the market. So that's the major one. But the second sub-point would also be, learning from the colleagues here in the panel is the need for measurement. And the measurement then informs our milestones that we continue to achieve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Gopika. So, obviously I'm not even going to attempt to summarize this discussion, and I don't think it's required. But this discussion has reminded us that reducing food loss and waste is not just simply about improving efficiency, the premise we started with, it's not. It's about protecting nutrition, strengthening livelihoods, and making our food systems more resilient. As we leave from here, perhaps we can carry a simple thought with us. The most nutritious food is not the food we grow, but the food that is actually eaten or actually gets eaten. Thank you all speakers, Dr. Ahimlata, Vartika, Dr. Pandey, Bhuvneshwari, for this really insightful talk, or panel. I don't know if you've done it. Yeah, we have? Yes, okay, because I was looking. So maybe, 3-4 questions or 2-3, whatever. If there are any burning questions, and then I think we can wind up this. So, yeah. And you can also tell us who the question is directed to, or if it's to anybody, then that's...
Yeah, this question is open to all of you. In reaching the food security stage, India has completely overlooked the food loss and waste thing. There is no overarching standalone law in the FLW sector. And as we navigate the challenge of providing nutritional security, how do you think that we can, create this sense of urgency at the policy level to inculcate FLW?
Sense of urgency at the policy level. Okay.
I think there is a growing sense of recognition of this urgency already coming in, and you can see that in several initiatives that state governments and the central governments are taking. ICAR is also spearheading the larger narrative of what would a food system transformation for India look like, and then, like what Sir was saying, ICAR is talking to ICMR, linking health and food systems. There's a larger narrative that's already happening, and even within, let's say, social protection or safety net programs like your Anganwadi or your PDS, there is a pivot that is already happening from just food security to nutrition security. They're looking at fair price shops into Nutri shops. We're looking at NFSA guidelines giving specific directions on what earlier ICDS supplementary nutrition largely looked at calories, macronutrients, calories and proteins. But now, earlier there was an introduction or a request for fortification to add micronutrients. But now the NFSA guideline further mentions deep diving on the quality of protein, the reduction of high salt, sodium, fat kind of guidelines as well. So from a policy landscape, I would say there are several encouraging narratives or policy level initiatives that have taken up, and there are thoughts of how do you, given food system cuts across multiple departments, there's also conversations on how is this going to get anchored, who is going to be that one body that's going to bring all stakeholders together and build that narrative. That conversation is also progressing. So I think we are at a very interesting stage when it comes to food system transformation. Yeah.
Just to quickly add to what Dr. Bhuvneshwari just mentioned is the aspect of measurement. We cannot talk about something that we cannot measure, and the consumption expenditure surveys that India used to do previously very frequently, the last one was in 2012, 2013, and then only a decade later do we have the latest estimates on consumption patterns. So now that we have those estimates, we are able to actually see what people are consuming, what is the nutrition composition of their diets, and how do we move around it. And as the narrative is progressing, there are conversations about doing it more frequently. Like if we do annual measurement of these consumption behavior patterns, then we are able to see whether the needle is moving or not. And since we started the session with lack of data, I think the focus is that as soon as we get more and more data, we'll be able to do more diving in to be able to create that sense of urgency. Thank you.
Dr. Pandey, would you like to add?
Yeah, several missions that has been already initiated in the government, like Pulse Mission, AL Mission, then Natural Farming Mission, Organic Farming Mission. Several initiatives are being. It is only for the nutrition security, not for the now. Totally, the government has shifted. They are not serial oriented. Now they have totally Pulse Mission, like oil missions, horticulture missions, vegetable missions. These type of missions have been started, and we are very closely working with the other departments also, like EPIDA, Commerce Ministry, how these high value compounds high value crops that can be imported, that can be, these value added products can be, nutraceuticals can be prepared, and how we can prove that nutraceuticals is really contributing for our nutritional security. This type of research is going on, and I think in the coming year we will see that impact of this type of, lot of data are being generated on that aspects.
Dr. Hemlata, would you like to?
Yeah, we move to the next question. I think they have given answers.
Okay, thank you. Any other question from the floor? Yeah, please.
I'm Sarosh Mohanta from Ecoshade. Yesterday morning we heard that there are 85% of the food loss is happening in the farm. Okay, and from there I'm trying to connect where we are talking about nutrition loss. Is it a simple equation to say 85% loss in the farm and therefore 85% loss of nutrition right there in the farm? And therefore, if I take the private sector investment, are we talking about an inclusiveness by which, I don't know the structure, but can the private sector, through some MSME or some kind of a structure, let's say, can we talk about 10,000 micro entrepreneurs in the village doing some kind of processing and bring that food that could get lost to the table? Maybe there is a semi-processing, there is something, I don't know. So is that some kind of a thought process that can go there? Because if we are only talking about the 15% loss that after the farm gate, I'm taking the yesterday's discussion. Yeah. I haven't verified those data. So if that is the logic, then is it important to look at that aspect of it? Thank you.
Yeah, actually you're also inferring to the missing middle when you're saying those 10,000 probably. But yeah, who amongst you?
You want to? Okay, okay. So what you were suggesting that, was saying that there is 80% lost at farm level. It may be correct, it may not be correct, commodity wise it may be. But what I am suggesting, what we are discussing in several times, that if there is a clusters are there. One example I would like to quote here, in Bulandshahr, I have visited 2 times, there is one colonel. He is having the collaboration with 1,000 farmers, and they are all growing the carrots only. If you see, they have the very good cold storage. They have their own built cold storage, and they are having the capacity of that cold storage near about 400 trucks they can store. They are they have two to three-fold cold storage are there, and you will surprise that even if any carrot is oversized, any carrot is cut, they have the these link up with the baby foods companies are there, so they are making the powders for that particular oversized carrots and other carrots, like cut carrots. So even zero loss, we can say zero loss, we can see at the farm level. So examples are there. We have to implement this type of example there, and very recently MSME has funded them near about 30 crores rupees. Now they have frozen plant also there. So in that area, now they have started lot of frozen up these particular vegetables. Anyone can visit that particular farm. That is one of the best examples how we have zero loss at farm gate level. So that's our examples. In that basis, we can implement our different schemes also. Thank you.
So maybe Dr. Hemlata, would you like to answer before?
Yeah. If I have understood correctly, I think he meant, can we equate the proportion of food lost to the proportion of nutrition loss? Certainly not, because nutrition-rich foods, when we say nutrition-rich foods, it means vegetables, fruits, pulses, whole grains, and dairy, more than dairy, eggs, and then fish and all. So nutrition-rich foods, why do we call them nutrition-rich foods? Is they are more rich in vitamins, minerals, bioactive compounds, fiber as well, especially whole grains as well. So when we cannot equate 1 kg rice lost to a 1 kg vegetable lost or fruits lost. Yes, it is important, losing 1 kg rice is very important, but it is more important to save nutrition-rich foods like vegetable, fruits and pulses and whole grains, and also the dairy and fish loss. So that's one thing I understood from this question, but the rest of it I couldn't.
I think Bhubaneswar,
Yeah, just quickly, I see the timer ticking. I agree with Dr. Hemlata. There is the micronutrient loss is very often exposure to heat, to, during logistics. There are different kinds of loss that happens due to rotting or shrinking, etc. So volume is not equal to nutrient, and that's a very key insight I take away, that we need to really articulate what is that. If 18 billion worth of loss, USD loss, what does that mean when you translate it to nutrition loss? The second part about the MSME ecosystem that you're talking about, there's a lot of work that the private sector is also driving around FPOs, and then of course, we have ADB here who would also talk about how they're investing in FPOs to look at the larger narrative of food loss reduction, right? So FPOs as an ecosystem is significantly growing. Private sector partnership with FPOs could really be a game changer. You have examples of different brands that are already doing that, sourcing from FPOs, building capacity of them, farmers becoming business enterprises. But enterprise development is truly a big opportunity to address food loss at scale, certainly, yeah.
Vartika, did you? No. Okay. So one last question probably, and then we'll wind up this panel. Yeah, but in case there was anything, and I think probably not. Yeah, there's a hand, yeah. Okay, last question.
Good evening, everybody. Ma'am, do you consider the food loss before the harvest, like due to floods and excessive rains before harvest at the farm level? Or do you start calculating after that it is harvested and it is ready as a commodity? You take the commodity for loss, or you take the food that is produced for the loss? Because I think as a farmer, the most is lost before it, due to unseasonal rains or before it is ready to be harvested.
So basically what you're saying is that there is loss also because of natural or whatever calamities. Yeah.
Natural calamities loss just before the harvest.
Before the
Not only natural calamity, lot of disease and pests are also, they are contributing. Even in some cases, 40% loss is due to these disease and pests are also there. Therefore, always we are talking about how we can have the resilient agri-food systems. We have lot of work is going on, particularly on climate resilience. Climate resilience include everything, whether it is a weather conditions, whether it is biotic or abiotic, anything are there. So loss is there, pre-harvest or post-harvest. If we can divide, pre-harvest management is equally important as we have the post-harvest management, because it is also contributing a lot of loss in our food systems.
So that is but close to the harvest. Like I want to ask that, like wheat is ready to harvest it tomorrow, and we lost the last year the paddy during the last week of October in the Punjab floods have came. The crop is ready, every investment, every agronomic practice has been followed.
No,
so that is
that is happening. Therefore, crop insurance scheme government has that has been launched only for this purpose, because we cannot control. You see, agriculture is naturally growing things are there, okay, and it is a very seasonal. So season and everything, it is not controlled. So therefore, we are saying that agriculture is always depend upon the weather conditions. So anything can be happen anytime. So it is also contributing a lot of loss, particularly it may be, you can call it crop loss, food loss, anything we can call it.
Thank you, sir.
So I think Thank you, Dr. Hemlata, Vartika, Dr. Pandey, Neshwari, and I hope the audience, thank you for being a wonderful audience, and I hope you found this session useful and adding to your overall knowledge of what we are doing in these 2 days. So I think over to Drishti, and thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, Monica.